Hi, this is Charlotte from El Sobrani, California, San Francisco Bay Area, and this week we'll be talking about distortion, friend or foe. It can be a really cool effect for guitars in particular, or an ear-splitting nightmare, so let's see what the difference is. First of all, what is distortion? It's basically any change made to a waveform, which can be by increasing the gain to increase the amplitude, or by applying frequency filters. Or it's also the result of a signal passing through a nonlinear device. A linear device is where the output signal would be directly proportional to the input signal across the frequency spectrum, across the board. Where in a nonlinear device, that's going to change. The input signal is not going to be directly proportional by the same amount all the way through. And also, changing the amplitude in a signal is going to create these additional harmonics. So if you look here, on the sine wave here, if you have the amplitude up too high, you might get clipping right here. And then as the amplitude comes up, it introduces these harmonics, which is what puts these little bends in the waveform. Because remember, this is a superposition of all the harmonics of a sound together. So that's what gives you sort of the unusual wave shape, and makes the sound change. Okay, so for undesirable distortion, this can happen, for example, when you have an input gain too high. Pretty much all devices have an input capacity, and if the signal starts to exceed that, the device is going to clip the signal and sort of cut off the top of the wave. So say, for example, you're doing some recording and you're using your input device, such as the audio box here, and you get everything all hooked up, your inputs here, and then you can adjust the gain with these knobs here, and you might get a signal like this. Okay. But then you think, wait, that's not loud enough, so I'm going to crank up the gain, and then the red light starts blinking at you. And this happens. So you can hear there that the signal is now distorted. It doesn't sound quite right, and this is going to affect the accuracy of your recording. So that's why it's important to have a good line level. So for desirable distortion effects, these are ways that you can add something to the sound to create an emphasis or try to emulate a certain type of amplifier, for example. So I'm working in Studio One, so I'm just going to show here the screenshot, and you will find these in the browser window under Effects. See all the ones right here. So we're going to focus on the Ampire and the red light disc. So here's the Ampire, which is meant to simulate guitar amps. It even has some smash boxes down here. And then the red light disc, which is meant to be more of a pure distortion kind of. So for the first one, for the Ampire, where we're going to try to simulate a particular type of amp, we might start with a clean blues riff like this. Which, by the way, is on a steel string acoustic. And then we could pull up Ampire and first adjust the type of amplifier it is. There's many choices here. And then the type of effect, crunchy riff, and vintage American combination there. And then there's some more controls here, but I want to pay particular attention to the drive and the gain. The higher these are, the crunchier your sound. The higher the drive, crunchier. The higher the gain, the more amplitude, more distortion. You can also adjust some equalizers here, and as well as add some presence. So let's see what that sounds like. For the second example, in the red light disc effect, this is more of just a pure distortion. It's not trying to emulate any particular sound of any particular amp, but you get to control it. So starting with the clean blues riff again, just for comparison. We can add this effect by, first of all, controlling the just dirty programmed one, and the bad tube, love the titles here. And then we can control, again, like before, the distortion and the drive. The higher these are, the more the sound changes. You can also do a little bit of equalizing and change the input to output mix here to give a little more effect. Which gives you a very gritty sound. So, distortion summary. Bad. When your input gain is set too high or you have a sudden audio spike, this is going to cause clipping, which is going to distort the wave and result in less accurate sound reproduction. but it can also be good and be a very useful effect to add texture, warmth, edginess, fullness, or try to emulate a particular type of amp and give you a nice emphasis in a mix. So thanks a lot for taking the time. Bye-bye.